I am someone who loves to learn, but I have to admit that recently I've been doing a lot of unlearning. I'm firmly into my 30s. I am 35 years old at the time of this video, and I'm not embarrassed to say that because age is just a number to me. It doesn't really mean anything. But I have to admit that I'm really enjoying my 30s. But I think and most of you who are in your 30s might agree, but once you get to the stage of life, you really start questioning things and you really start wondering about some of these ideas that you've had since childhood, whether or not they're actually true. And I have to say that there's a lot of things that I grew up thinking that have proven to be completely untrue. And so these ideas have influenced me throughout my life. And now in my 30s, I'm realizing that a lot of these things either aren't true or actually don't matter. And so I thought I'd share some of these things with you, especially for those of you who haven't gotten to your 30s yet. And I think it might resonate with many of you, and there might be some stuff in there that's a bit shocking. But let's see what it is. First thing, beautiful people have it all. Now, don't judge me for saying this, but I really, really believe this, that if you were good looking, then you had it easy in life. Because in my mind, beauty and worth were equal. So if you weren't beautiful, then people didn't see any worth or value in you. I literally grew up with this idea. And I think it was mostly because, to be honest, I was surrounded by a lot of beautiful people. A lot of my family members are very, like my cousins and stuff, they're all very good looking. And actually, I'm the only one who doesn't look like they do. And perhaps it was that, because I always assumed that particularly if you were female, if you were a good looking female, then you just had everything coming to you. You know, what people call pretty privilege now. I really believe that that was true. But to be honest, I've really come to understand that that actually doesn't matter. I think that that's just something society has put into our minds. And it's really sad because it makes a lot of us feel unworthy because we don't fit a certain beauty standard, and therefore we think, oh, who's ever going to want us? Who's ever going to listen to us? Those kind of thoughts is a result of that. And it's really a shame, because the truth is, it doesn't matter how good looking you are. You know, if you're a horrible person, no amount of beauty is going to make you attractive. And that is the honest truth. You know, I used to think that people, particularly males, only look for someone who is attractive. But honestly, that if you marry someone literally for how they look and they turn out to be a horrible person, that marriage ain't gonna last, let me tell you. So this idea that I've had for pretty much my whole life, that I needed to look a certain way in order to be worthy, it was a complete and total lie. And I really, really hope that that is changing for the younger people now, where we don't start thinking that we need to look a certain way in order to be important. Because honestly, the way you look, it does not matter. And however you look, there's nothing wrong with you. These are really life-altering things for me. It's bad to be the odd one out. Now, I grew up in an age where if you didn't do what everybody else was doing, then you were the weirdo and you got picked on for it. And you being the different one was always a bad thing. And as I've aged, I've understood that, first of all, the whole of society is not the same. Everyone is different. But our diversity is actually our strength. Because if we were all the same, if we all thought the same way, we'd really not be able to function as a society. The fact that we have different personalities, that we like different things, it makes us a better society. You know, we shouldn't all be dressing the same and looking the same and having the same opinion. That's not the point, you know. God didn't create us to be all the same, or we would all look the same and be a bunch of robots. But, you know, when you are that one person in the room that's different to everyone else, that can be really, really hard. And that has been me for most of my life. And I've always seen that as a bad thing. And I've always felt bad about that, or it's always ruined my confidence because I always felt like I didn't fit in and that I needed to fit in. But the truth is that I just really needed to embrace who I was and carry on being me. And honestly, like, once you let go of trying to fit in, it changes you. It changes you so much. And I think that's probably why I'm enjoying my 30s so much, because I just don't feel the need to fit in anymore. That I actually like that I am different and that my opinion is often different to everyone else's opinion. And some people are now actually saying that to me. Like, they come to me for my opinion because they know that it will be different from other people's opinion. So I guess I offer a different perspective to people that they may not have seen themselves. So yeah, I definitely find value in actually being different. You have to follow the same path as everyone else. I grew up with this idea that there was a certain way to live life, that you go to school, then you go to university, then you get a job, then you get married, then you buy a house, then you have children, and then you sit. That's your life. You're done. You're successful. I really, really believe that that was the only way to be successful, the only way to live life. And I think what really changed my perspective is aging. Because I don't think there is just one way to do life. I don't think that we need to live a tick box life. I don't think that we all need to go and get a degree to be successful. And this is not me putting down tertiary education. I don't regret going to university. It definitely taught me a lot, and I don't just mean in engineering. I mean, it taught me a lot about life, and it definitely influenced my mindset. And I wouldn't necessarily say it prepared me for working, but it was definitely instrumental to the rest of my future. And I'm not saying that if you didn't do that, that you would somehow be less or at a disadvantage. I don't believe that at all. I believe there's very many ways to do life, and honestly, at this age, it doesn't matter to me whether somebody has a degree or not. I used to think that when I was younger, I used to think if you don't have a degree, like, that's really bad. Like, you don't go to like university, like, that's so bad. How could you like not have done that? And you know, because that's the path that everyone is supposed to follow. But it's not true. It's actually not true. You know, Allah has written what He has written for you in your life. For some people, that will mean that you'll have a degree and a high-paying job. For some people, that means you will have a spouse and a family. And for some people, you won't have that. But you know, I think my idea of what is a successful life has certainly changed. And I don't feel chained into this tick box life. And I don't think anybody should be, because ultimately, whether or not you have a degree, whether or not you have a big fancy job and a huge income and a spouse and millions of children, like, these are not things that are, you know, that are going to make you successful in life. You get to choose the kind of life that you want to have, and Allah will write the best life for you. So no, I don't think that there is a certain path that we all need to follow in life. Everything in this world is black and white. Now, I'm the kind of person who always lived in a black and white sort of mindset. I'm like, it's either this or that. Like, what is wrong and what is right is very clear. There are no gray areas in life. And I really did live my life like that in my 20s. But as I'm aging and I'm starting to understand people a lot better and understand why people do the things that they do and how they end up in the places that they end up in life, I start to realize that there's actually very little black and white in this life. It's just a million shades of gray, because it's not simple. It is really not simple. You know, people go through so many different things that influence their lives, that make them make bad decisions, and sometimes those bad decisions make them go on to make better decisions. So no, there is nothing in this life that is black and white anymore. Every situation is, you know, it depends on the perspective that you have, the way that you look at it. There's good and bad in everything. And that really has made me more empathetic, because I think before, when I believed everything was black and white. It's like, yeah, there are good people and there are bad people. There's no in between. That is such a false impression of society or people in general. It's like you label someone, yeah, that's a bad person because they did this, they lied, or they did this one bad thing. So they can never ever be good and they'll be bad for the rest of their lives. Or there's this good person because they made this $1 million donation and therefore they're the best person in the world and they're always going to be the best person in the world. Like, that's how I saw things. And I think that we kind of get trained to think that way as well, especially when you're a child. You know, you always get told, oh, be a good girl, and then, you know, everything will be good, and, you know, always make good decisions. And, you know, we always get taught to like be good, and we think that that's like a label. And if you were a naughty child and you always got taught that you did naughty things, in your mind you start thinking that, hey, maybe I'm a bad person and everything that I do in life is going to be bad. You know, we get stuck into these categories, and, you know, again, which is just living life like everything is black and white when it's really not. It's all just areas of gray. Female friendships are all about gossip and backstabbing. Now, I think I might be the only person who thought this through my whole childhood. And I think the reason for that was because I wasn't surrounded by a lot of females in my childhood. In the neighborhood that I grew up, I was one of 2 girls. I studied engineering and I was one of 3 girls. So for most of my life, I've been surrounded by males. And I've never had a lot of female friends. And I have never felt comfortable in female-only spaces because I've always felt like females are very, very judgmental, and I've never been a super feminine person. I've always been a tomboy, and I never ever thought that someone like me could fit in a society of, or a community of just females. And obviously after coming into Islam and, you know, spending more time with sisters, you know, my perspective has obviously changed. But I think also, like, when, or at least for my generation, we were definitely raised in a patriarchal society where women were kind of like competing with each other for male attention, and that's all we saw each other as competition. And I think probably the generations before me were also, you know, raised in that sort of mentality. And so I always thought that female relationships were in that way, where underneath it all, we were all just competing with each other for something else. And we never supported each other or uplifted each other. And this is completely false, by the way. The relationships between females don't have to be that way, okay? We can actually be supportive of each other. We can actually be happy when our sister, you know, has something good happening in our life, even if it's the same thing that we wanted for our lives. You know, it doesn't have to be that way. And I feel like the generation after me and the other generations after me, they're kind of showing that now, where you see, especially in like media and stuff, you're seeing a lot more women being more supportive of other women. And I think that that is fantastic. And I think that we definitely need to change that mentality, because, you know, we are not competition. We never were, to be honest. Nobody, male, female, we're not put on this earth to compete with each other. We're all here for a reason. We all have worth and we all have purpose. So it's never going to be a competition. And, you know, if you want to be successful in life, whatever you deem successful, you don't need to compete with others or put them down or push them out of the way in order for you to shine. Like, that's not how this life works. And I think that many of us have been raised to think that way, and that is completely false. You cannot make mistakes. This might be another thing that's just me, but I think it's also why I've ended up becoming like a recovering perfectionist. To me, as a child, I think I was raised with the idea that if I made a mistake, that is the worst thing that could ever happen to me, and that I was a terrible person for making a mistake. And because I've grown up with that idea, it definitely pushed me towards perfectionism. And I mean, there's a good side to perfectionism, obviously, but there's also a really bad side. And I made a video about the pitfalls of perfectionism if you want to go check that out. But I really, really do think that, you know, the idea that making mistakes is bad really kind of ruins your mindset, because you become so fearful of making a mistake that you don't even try anymore. And to be honest, we learn more from making mistakes, from the things that go wrong, than we do from the successful moments in our lives. So actually making mistakes is a good thing in a way. It teaches you a lot. And so, yeah, I definitely, making mistakes is not bad. Curly hair is ugly. I think I'm not the only one who's thought this throughout their life. But for me in particular, I'm of Indian heritage. And if you know anything about Indian women, most of them have the most beautiful, thick, long, straight, shiny hair. And I do not have that. And I am the only one in my entire family that has curly hair. And as a child, and I think there are a lot of people who went through this, that we always thought that straight hair was beautiful, because that is all that was portrayed around us. And I spent a lot of time blow drying my hair, mistreating it, forcing it to be straight, because I thought that it was ugly. But I think probably in the last 5 years, I've really started to embrace my curls and understand how to take care of my hair, not just as a hijabi, because I don't wear this all the time, obviously, when I'm home, and all my mahrims, they get to see me without the hijab on. So yeah, I do care what my hair looks like, and I do take a lot better care of it. And honestly, I love the fact that I have curly hair. And that's such a big statement for me, because when I was a child, I hated it. I hated it so much. And I think there's so many other women, whether you're Desi or Indian or whatever ethnicity you are, and you have curly hair, you've always seen it as such a bother, and you've always wished that you didn't have that hair. But I love it. I love it now, and I see the beauty in it. And I mean, not that I'm saying that straight hair isn't also beautiful. Of course it is. But I think that my mind really changed once I understood how to take care of curly hair. And that really made me realize that it's not my hair that's the problem. It's the fact that I didn't have knowledge and that I didn't understand how to take care of it. Because no, you can't brush curly hair, guys. Like, that's not a good idea. Do not brush your curly hair. That really just makes it go like, whoo. And then, yeah, you lose all your curl definition and whatnot. But yeah, curly hair, it's beautiful. People never change. I think this is the greatest lie of all time. Because even the people who think that they haven't changed, they have most certainly changed. It's inevitable. Change is the only constant in life. As we age, we learn more, we experience more. And through these experiences, we grow as human beings. And you know, a lot of times that can be scary for people, because people don't like change. And sometimes, especially at the point where you might be choosing a spouse, you think, okay, I'm making a decision based on who this person is now, but I don't know who they are going to be in 10 years. And yeah, that's what's kind of called a leap of faith. But that is true, like, and it's true for everyone. And from my own life, I can tell you who I was 10 years ago is a total different person to who I am today. And I don't just mean visually, but who I am on the inside is a completely different person to who I was 10 years ago. And if you ask anyone who is older, I think that they would say the same thing, that we all change over time. And I think that's kind of the point. We're supposed to change. We're not supposed to stay the same forever. There's beauty in change, and we shouldn't resist it, really, because ultimately it's only for our benefit. People in their 30s have life figured out. When I was younger, I thought, first of all, that being in your 30s, like, you're old now, okay? You've done everything. Like, you've got your life set. You're just chilling now. That's what I thought. That's a lie. That's a big lie. I don't think anybody has their life figured out. There are people who are like in their 50s who are like starting again. They're like going and studying, doing a whole different new career, because they realize that what they've been doing up until that point wasn't what they wanted to do. So I don't think that there's a specific age or a specific time where you will have everything figured out, where you will be set for life. And I think we really need to stop thinking about that as well, because life is ever changing. We can't think, oh, if I just do this, then I'll get to this point and then everything will be fine. That point is never going to come, because life, society, the world is constantly changing, and you kind of gotta grow and evolve with it. So no, there is no one age or one point in life where you will have absolutely everything figured out. And really, that's not the point of life. You kind of want to keep growing, keep learning. That's really the joy of life. Stereotypes are always true. Now, I grew up with this idea, and I think maybe most of you have as well, and I think it's because humans in general like to categorize things. They like to put people in boxes because that's the easiest way to understand. But I think I've proven a lot of people wrong, because I'm one of the few people who is multifaceted, I guess you could say. So what I mean by this is that I have like an analytical side to me and a creative side to me, and it has pushed me in lots of different directions that people might consider as opposing directions in life. So for example, I have a degree in engineering. I also have a qualification in makeup artistry and I have like a lot of creative things that I like to pursue, and I have a lot of critical things that I like to pursue, like more analytical things, should I say. And I think a lot of us are this way, but because we've been trained to just be one thing, like we keep thinking, oh, okay, I have to grow up and like be a doctor and that's all that I will be. Or I have to grow up and be a baker and that's all that I am. We're all trying to fit into this one stereotype, this one category. As a baker, I'm a creative person and I like doing all these things, and I'm a morning person, so and so. Or as an engineer, I only see things in this way. Everything is, analytical for me. I have no creative bone in my body. This is the kind of thing we get raised with because we're so prone to thinking of things in certain categories. And I think that because I am so multifaceted, I have really started to understand that stereotypes are actually quite meaningless. Just because someone likes being creative doesn't mean that they can't be analytic. Just because someone is female doesn't mean they love pink. Just because you're a boy doesn't mean you love sports. All these things, these stereotypes that we put in our mind. Sure, maybe it came from somewhere at some point in history, but honestly, 9 times out of 10, the stereotype's completely false. And we are human. We are meant to be multidimensional. We're never ever just one thing. And when you really think about the people in your life, you will realize that. So those are a few of the things that I've been unlearning in my 30s. I hope that this has at least been interesting for you, and hopefully, it's helped you unlearn a few things too, maybe. And if you have any of your own little tidbits of what you're unlearning in your life right now, I would love to hear them. So put them in the comments. I will definitely read them. But that's all I have to say for this little video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.